It is time for Retraction. I'm Antoine.
I'm Jamie, and we are reversing course through discourse.
It's episode 86, and if you're in the tri-state area, I hope you stay dry. Stay dry, America.
Not because it's raining, because it is hot, and it's got to be like 99% humidity out there. It is.
It didn't pour by you?
Yesterday.
It just poured right now.
Oh, no, not yet. Okay. Maybe we're getting it. Maybe it's just south.
Coming. It's coming.
Storm heading south.
Yeah,
it's nasty out. It's not good.
So,
well,
to start, I have a PSA.
Oh, go ahead.
I have a PSA. I wonder if that's a new segment. I wonder if that's a segment of the pod.
How are you going to say it? How are you going to intro it?
I have a Pazza.
Pazza! Pazza! That's not half bad.
It's not bad. It's not bad. Here's the PSA, people. Brittney Griner is wrongfully detained. That's a fact.
Okay.
That's the PSA.
That's the PSA.
Yeah.
So I don't know much about her. We did cover her very quickly, I think, very lightly on the pod in a previous episode. But she is a basketball player.
She is.
She is playing a professional basketball player in Russia.
Off-season, playing in Russia.
Off-season, playing in Russia. Mm-hmm. And she was arrested and detained in Russia for having cannabis oil, some type of oil.
In oil.
And she knew about it, or she did not know about it.
Oh, that's irrelevant because you'll never know. I mean, she was
okay.
What
did she say?
Well, she says that it was by mistake, that she left it in the bag by mistake. She was rushing and she didn't realize that it was still in the bag.
Well, it was in the bag. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then so it's illegal in Russia, I assume?
Yes, it's illegal.
And I think that I don't know what the normal sentencing guidelines are in Russia if a Russian got caught with that.
Yeah.
But why don't they just deport her or allow us to
take her back? That would probably be a normal recourse. That's something along the lines of normalcy, even in a country that is supposed to be very rigid when it comes to its drug enforcement.
Is it a bargaining chip? They're using her as a bargaining chip.
Well, I mean, tool. Well, that's what some people think, and I wanted to. The reason it's a PSA is because I originally was not going to really enter this foray. I was really going to let the media and everyone else sort of debate this out and let greater powers and people who are more scholarlistic when it comes to hostage negotiations and foreign policy talk at length about this situation. I wasn't going to get into it because it's not necessarily in our wheelhouse, and I was just like, there are better demons. There are other people out there. But here's where I got lured in. I was watching an ESPN YouTube. And the comment section, usually a comment section on a channel like ESPN is a little bit mixed, because it's a network on sports. It's a network that literally follows grown adults who play children's games for obscene amounts of money and commentates on it. That's what they do. It's not CNN. They're not partisan. They're not covering. It's not C-SPAN. They're not doing Senate deals. They're not doing what's going on in Congress. They're foreign policy. They're not covering the war necessarily, unless it's related to sports. So the comment section on an ESPN YouTube that was titled Brittney Griner's basically illegal detention in Russia was just spammed with hundreds, maybe thousands of comments that were all in unison about why anyone should give a crap about this woman. She broke the law. She deserves what she can get. It's like woke mainstream media trying to build a narrative about what's going on with Brittney Griner. And
are they bots? Are they like Russian bots doing that?
I mean, who knows? But I mean, here's the problem. It's not just them. I mean, Joe Rogan also came out with a nice little quip. He made a little comedic thing about why we care about her when there's so many people in the United States. He did a whole whataboutism. There's what about all the other people that are incarcerated on trumped up pot charges, languishing in jail? If they could throw a basket,
them too.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's what's so funny about it.
Not
it's
what
not
about
one or the other.
Not what about them too.
Right. It's exactly. It's like we should be concentrating at home with our problem, and we should be concentrating on these problems abroad when it comes to our own citizens. I mean, it really reminds me of that sketch. It's like a sketch of, the parent tells the kid to shut up, And then someone else comes and tries to tell the kid to shut up, and the parent goes, whoa, 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 whoa. That's my kid. I tell my kid, he's like, we arrest people on trumped up pot charges, but don't you go arresting our citizens. That's an American. You can't do that. We do that. That's our thing. We incarcerate people unjustly. You can't incarcerate our people unjustly, right? It's that kind of situation. I'm like, that's where the comedy comes from. And so I got a little livid. I got a little fired up with that, So I went.
What is she looking at in terms of a sentence? Is that decided?
Yeah, sure. Let me read this because I think that Vox, they did a cool article. It's called "How Can the U.S. Bring Brittney Griner Home?" And in the article, let me just read a portion of this because this will answer a couple of questions, and then we can circle back because that's my annoyance with it. I'm like, there are clear facts here, people, that everyone seems to be willfully ignorant. Like they're pushing it under the rug in order to build their own narrative about why we should feel bad for a sports hero that broke the law. So in the article, it goes, a Russian court sentenced basketball star Brittney Griner to 9 years in a penal colony. Griner, who was playing in a Russian league during the offseason, just ahead of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, was found with about a gram of hash oil and received nearly the maximum sentence after being found guilty of drug trafficking. Okay? Trafficking.
A gram.
Now, for anyone who doesn't understand the difference between possession and trafficking is with intent to sell. The Russian court, the prosecution literally said she entered the country of Russia to sell a gram of hash oil as an international drug dealer. The least profitable international drug dealer in the history of international drug dealing. No doubt about that. Now, what you get for a gram of hash oil in Russia, I don't know. But I'm pretty sure Russia has its own drug dealers that can provide you with plenty more than a gram of hash oil. But anyway, it
would be laughable if it wasn't a real person being hurt by this.
Absolutely.
9 years
penal colony. That's hard labor. 9 years hard labor.
I mean, clearly it's retribution for our involvement in Ukraine.
Duh.
Yeah, I mean, right?
Yeah.
So
right. I mean, you're hitting the head on the nail.
And then what I heard was that we offered them. We want someone back, but we're going to give them like this horrific arms dealer.
Yeah.
He's got a nickname and everything.
Well, all right. We don't have to get into the nuances of that because that's pending and that's being litigated or negotiated between the foreign policy.
But there are people who are critiquing that. One is like, I don't care who we have to give up, get her home, get these two people home. But the other people are like, well, wait a minute, like this dude's a bad dude and took a lot of effort to put him away.
Yeah, I get that. Well, look, I feel like that's a completely different sentiment. It's a different, it's a whole different kit and caboodle here. You know what I'm saying? Like that's oranges and apples. It's like,
so your concern is like, regardless of any negotiation, this woman shouldn't be detained at all, and never mind sentenced to hard labor for 9 years.
Right. And the people who are hard nosing it, that's what's getting my girdle here. That's where I'm getting a little annoyed.
Can Americans not even unite around this anymore?
Nope.
Is this now something that
this is partisan? Yeah, this is some sort of nuanced partisan mainstream
and then you have
media
Don Jr. Hype, all like coked up on national television doing stuff, and that's no big deal.
Well, I mean, like again, it's not a whataboutism. It's not a what's going on with this person, what's going on.
Well,
with that
it's a
person.
hypocrisy.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a level of hypocrisy, absolutely. But here. This is
that's like them criticizing someone for being divorced, and you have Trump who was like how many times divorced. It's just like if it wasn't, what, I wouldn't be bringing that up if it wasn't such a cult following around it.
Yeah,
I feel like that's what's irking me a little bit is, yeah, you're right. It is whataboutism, but there's a level of hypocrisy because of how blindly loyal they are to the point where they can never talk about anything wrong he does. The most I've ever heard the right seed on Donald Trump is that he should tweet less. I can't really, even if they said something worse than that, they've backtracked it. Even on January 7th, They went back on January 8th and took everything back.
Well, all right. Now,
Anyway,
let's first of all, I don't know if every commenter is a Trump supporter necessarily. That's
I'm going to go out on a limb.
It's an assumption you have to make. It's an assumption you have to make. But anyway, I wanted to fill this with some facts because that's why this is a PSA, because there are just clear facts in the case. Never mind the logistics about what is deemed appropriate in terms of sentencing or looking at the way our two countries work their justice systems, which are not too dissimilar in terms of the way the prosecutions go after people.
Because we will often detain people, jail them, and then deport them as well. We don't necessarily deport everyone right off the bat. So do you agree that obviously 9 years hard labor is ridiculous? Not always, no, but that is a thing. Do you agree that she would have to pay a fine or be detained for X amount of weeks or months, whatever the penalty would be for this? There
is not whether she broke a law. She clearly broke a law, but the law that she was charged with breaking is preposterous. And that's ridiculous. Exactly. And that's what the PSA is about, is to understand that you cannot just simply go out there and sort of blanket statement, screw this girl. Why does anyone care? She broke a law. This country, we know how this country is. They're severely whatever with drugs and foreigners. She should know better. Lock her up, throw away the key. No one can make a mistake. This isn't even about making a mistake. This is about being held as a political pawn, essentially, because she's not. There's no way you could come to the conclusion, and this even in Russia, that is not normal. That's what.
So you're not arguing the fact that she would be penalized in any way.
I'm not arguing.
You're not arguing any. All you're saying is, guys, the whole argument to say that she's getting what she deserves is bogus, because what she's getting is not what she deserves, because it's not the right charge. It would be like you jaywalking and being charged with murder, and you're like, no, you're not getting what you want. You don't get what you deserve.
You would have to feel the exact same way if a loved one of yours went abroad and jaywalked, because like certain countries like Singapore, there are certain laws. Jaywalking, you probably will be fined. You will be picked up for breaking such basically these like simple, I don't know what kind of codes we call them, like our blue codes. I don't know, some sort of like, it's a law, but it's not like a law that's actively enforced. It would be me saying, hey, your cousin shouldn't have jaywalked in Singapore. I'm sorry they're being put to death. They broke the law. And they're like, but they were charged with murder. And it's like, well, they jaywalked.
They should have known. You should have known. You don't jaywalk.
You don't jaywalk in Singapore. Yeah, they could do anything to you. You don't break any laws. They really should have. I think you could be fined or picked up for littering. They should not have bought that delicious, noodle dish, and then thrown away the bowl. They know they're in Singapore. I'm sorry that in throwing away the bowl, they got caught with like international espionage with like intent to bring down the government. That's not my problem. They know don't litter in Singapore. You know what I'm saying? Like it's an insane argument to sort of like, to contest. Like it's crazy to just even to begin with that. And the thing is, I don't think that people are as informed to even know what the actual charge was in the end. I think everyone is just simply saying they're hard on drugs. Don't bring drugs into the country. They tried her as a drug kingpin. They literally said she is America's Pablo Escobar. They brought a gram of oil into the country, and they tried her like we would try like someone, like Pablo Escobar or any of the other famous drug dealers that have ever graced American soil. They tried her with the same charges.
I mean, I'm surprised they even admitted that it was only a gram. I mean, they could have said anything, and then it would have been a he said, she said. They could have said that they found whatever amount. It doesn't matter. It's such a spit in the face, right? Because it's almost like they don't care. They're kind of doing it, and knowing that we can't really do much about it.
Well, Russia,
it's like a weird power move. Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, you also have to look at the case as well. You're a foreigner in a foreign land. You're being represented by Russian counsel. Okay, this is the same Russia that doesn't treat government officials too kindly
Kill
if
'em.
if they don't
Kill 'em.
do what the state wants
The journalists,
them to do. I mean, it's not
the
just the journalists.
politicians,
A couple of the generals have disappeared since the war has begun.
Yeah. They wanted to spend more time with their families.
Yeah. They and their families have gone off to a farm in somewhere in the
lottery
east,
on the island.
It's Siberia. They've moved over to Siberia to enjoy the gentle life.
With climate change, it's beautiful this time of year.
I'm just saying, that is also wild. So she's being represented by people who have no incentive to win her case. All right, so you have to put it in that context, unless they don't value their lives or the lives of their family, and so you've got those two double whammies. And then the other thing is, in Russia, when a prosecutor basically, drums up charges against you, they have like a 99% conviction rate. So she had to admit that she did the charges. Like, she had to actually agree to be guilty, because fighting it, she thought it would be even worse. Instead of the 9 years, they probably would have given her the full 11. I think it's either 10 or 11. So she's in a impossible situation. So to even judge her for like saying I'm guilty, okay, is just crazy, because there was no other choice. She had to say I was an international drug dealer. What else is she going to do? Like, what else is she going to do?
Well, what are these poor girls' options? Is it just prisoner exchange? I mean, is that all she's got going for her? There's no appeal system, I assume. This is like it.
There's no appeal system. I will read. So in the article that I brought up, because I wanted to back it up with some facts, there's Daniel Gilbert. He is a fellow at Dartmouth College and assistant professor at the United States Air Force Academy. He's also writing a book, Gilbert, on why states and rogue actors take hostages and how their freedoms are negotiated. He wrote, or he said in the piece, that the fact that they sentenced her to 9.5-year prison sentence, which is completely outside the norm of what someone would get for that amount of drugs that she had in her possession, the fact that they've telegraphed that they want prisoner exchange for her and Paul Whelan's release, that's the other person that's being held unjustly, indicates to me that this is a hostage taking, which is when someone holds a prisoner with the threat to continue holding that person until certain conditions are met. In this case, those conditions are the prisoner exchange or other concessions that they might be asking for behind the scenes.
I was going to say, they're probably not making some of them public, because
yes, he said that in the negotiations, it's most of it's behind doors, but eventually we'll know. We'll find out what it is. He also wrote. I mean, here's the other thing that Griner says. That Gilbert says. He says Brittney Griner was designated as wrongfully detained in May, and wrongfully detained is an official State Department designation, which means that the Secretary of State basically looked into the case and said that this is an unfair. It's basically an unfair accusation. So my point is, when people are saying that the media is creating a narrative about her wrongful detainment, I'm like, it factually, our government has classified her as such. That's a government classification. It's not a media narrative. That's the other part of the PSA, people. It's not the media trying to drum up sympathy for her. That's an actual classification. She has been classified as wrongfully detained. The government has said this is not right.
It's probably difficult for Republicans to understand that, because their media outlets and government became virtually one and the same over the past administration. So they probably see it as, I mean, geez, you would have Fox News doing a segment and then the president calling in, and then you would see tweets put out, which are official things because it's through the White House account, that reflected news segments that he was seeing, or commentary. So to them, when they hear something like that, they probably don't really distinguish between the two, for as warped and twisted as that may be. I'm not sure that they make the distinction.
Well, that's why this is a PSA. There's a PSA to let everyone know that this woman is being wrongfully detained. That's a fact. It doesn't matter how you feel about it. It doesn't matter how you think that she's getting special treatment because she's an athlete and if she wasn't such a high profile sports figure, no one would care, and it would just be we would just be going about our day because she broke a law and she deserved the punishment for her crime. Not what's happened at all. At all. These are the facts of the case. However you feel about it now is on you. But people, no more taking to social to litigate this thing as if it's something that can be litigated. There are just the clear facts of it. Wrongful detainment, the U.S. government officially sanctioned, and there will be an exchange, possibly, or there should be, because, well, I mean, that's how these things work. Otherwise, if Russia didn't think that they could get a prisoner, then they wouldn't. They would probably just send her home. But they knew they had someone that the U.S., would be high profile enough to have media outlets talking about it, and could get the ear of the president. So
it is super frustrating. Good PSA. I hope that clarifies a few things for people.
I mean, yeah. Well, I was going to say, if you want to talk about the prisoner now that that's all out of the way, if you want to talk about whether it is right to give up a mass murderer or I don't know who this guy is that they want.
An arms dealer.
Okay, an arms dealer. I'm sure he doesn't deal any more arms than we do, but to give him up, I don't know the philosophy behind that. We don't. What is it? We don't bow down to terrorists or what have you. I think at a certain level, you have to maybe even go one step further. Then you have to say, well, why do we let U.S. citizens go to Russia as a country? Then, I mean, maybe that's something that needs to be looked at. You could always create a bigger bargaining chip with regard to this. You could say, you know what, we're not going to give you this prisoner, and the West is going to blockade any of our citizens from stepping foot on your soil, and you could just do something like that. I mean, it's very easy to do that.
I'm sure it was easy to do that. I'm not sure what's left after the Ukrainian war.
In Russia?
Oh, I thought you meant for us. Sorry, to do to them.
Yeah. I'm just saying. Like, I mean, we could say, we're going to blockade you. We're not going to allow any citizens to, we could do a number of different things. But I don't know. I don't know what the government wants to do. I don't know. So
yeah, I mean, you
don't necessarily have to do prisoner exchange. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, with everything that's going on in Ukraine, I'm not sure sanction wise what else they could do. Because we probably already went through all the things that you would do for her at that level. What's left, I mean, it's I don't know if you know what I'm trying to say, but it's like,
yeah, you're saying
like if she was like equivalent to like if she was like equivalent to like a level 3 sanction, and they're like, yeah, we went through 5, 4, 3, and we're all at ones now, like we are, or whatever it is, like we're at like higher or whatever was more valuable sanctions now, and these are things like to deter them from using nukes.
Right.
Like, it's almost like ridiculous at that point, but that's all we got left. Like, I don't know if it's that type of thing. I don't know what else we could throw at them at this point. But I'm sure maybe there's some. I mean, it's not my job to know that.
Yeah.
The prisoner exchange, I mean, I think what they were saying was that this guy is due to, I mean, I just looked it up really quickly. He's called like the Merchant of Death.
Okay.
Ominous nickname. I'm sure he's a bad dude who's done some things. But I think when I remember talking about him, it's that his sentence is almost up. And so withholding him holds less, like holding him, I would say, holds less importance at this stage, because he's going to get out soon anyways, the way that it was positioned. I don't know if that's true. So giving him up as part of this exchange would make sense because he's less valuable to us.
Right. Well, Lynn, I hope that something happens. I hope that the government does what it needs to do to tell our citizens that we will protect you abroad, because I think that the converse to this of doing nothing leaves a bad taste in the mouths of, I think, patriotic citizens to their country. I think it's naive to feel that there won't be reverberations by leaving her there, towards, and misgivings towards our own government. This is one more. It's just one more. Our government is basically dying by 1,000 cuts, and it's like one more cut to say, oh, not only is all this other stuff going on and all this mistrust going on everywhere else, but even I mean, to bring her home might be another cut for the people that believe that she is being, detained rightfully because they're just ill-informed. I mean, that's it. At the end of the day, there's nothing more to say about that.
You can't cower
it's just ignorance
to that. Yeah.
Right. That's just ignorance. So you can't cower to it. But to leave her there with either the aim of appeasing these people is just, I feel like you have to have principles at some level. You cannot expect to survive till the end if you have very little principle. And just one more show of the government's sort of betrayal of its own citizens, in that way, I think it could have small ripple effects that go down the line. So anyway, that's my PSA. That's my word on it, and that's what I wanted to get out there. So,
well, it was a good one, and I'm glad that you brought it up. People need to know that if they didn't know already, or they need to know for when people do say things like that to be a little more sensitive to it, because it would be easier for you to just brush it off and be like, oh yeah, I don't know much about her or whatever. But now hopefully our listeners have a little bit of more information in their arsenal. And I did look it up. He was sentenced in 2012 to 25 years, which is he served about half of it. He's got about 12 years left or something like that. So
oh wow, yeah, that's a while.
Yeah, but
yeah. But I did bring it up as well because it's not just like social media either. I was eating breakfast in my town, and there was a bunch of guys, and one of them was speaking very loudly to say that he doesn't understand why there's so much of a kerfuffle over this woman. She broke a law, and this is what happens when you break laws. And then I was trying to ignore it because there's no benefit to getting in someone's face in public. You're not going to change their mind. But at the same time, that's always my, I'm like, how many laws do you break? That's the question I always want to get up and say to somebody. But like, how many laws have you broken last week? Did you go the speed limit every single time you got in your car? And if you didn't, I guess you just were missed, because I think you should be in jail right now. You probably shouldn't even be sitting here. You just got lucky. I mean, like, there's nuance, people. There's nuance to these things.
Yeah.
So you can't just blanket statement these things as if people don't, this person has family. This person has people who love her. She's a human being. She's a citizen. You can't just, you have to say, what kind of country are we? We just turn against our citizens like that.
Lazy.
Yeah, that's part of it. And what happens to lazy
they want to be told what to think. Well, I don't understand why. Well, maybe you should look into it. If you don't understand why, and you've only ever heard your point of view from one outlet, one source, maybe you should broaden your horizon a little bit.
Yeah. Well. Anyway, what do you got?
All right. So Alex Jones found guilty, ordered to pay $49.3 million in damages, although he can remain on air while he appeals the verdict.
We are covering some stuff. Okay, all right.
So
what's up with this?
For those of you that might be living under a rock, or international viewers who don't know who Alex Jones is, he hosts a show that profits off of lies and conspiracy theories. Arguably one of the most distasteful ones are the ones we're talking about here, where he claimed the deadliest school shooting in U.S. history, Sandy Hook, was a hoax. It's worth noting that under oath, he actually did acknowledge that it's 100% real, but There you go. Now I could sit here and muse about how Jones represents some of the worst traits humans can exhibit. But what I find more interesting is how this is and isn't a blow to fake news. And I'm going to read an excerpt from the AP article that I read.
Oh, cool.
U.S. courts have long held that defamatory statements, falsehoods damaging the reputation of a person or a business, aren't protected as free speech, but lies about other subjects like science, history, or the government are. For example, saying COVID-19 isn't real is not defamatory, but spreading lies about a doctor treating coronavirus patients is. And the quote goes on, That distinction is why Jones, who attacked the parents of Sandy Hook victims and claimed the 2012 shooting was staged with actors to increase gun control, is being forced to pay up, while Holocaust deniers, flat earthers, and vaccine skeptics are free to post their theories without much fear of a multi-million-dollar court judgment. Now, the argument supporting Jones is that this will have a chilling effect for anyone that wants to critique government and the media. The argument opposing Jones is that this will only chill those who purposely spread false information, the kind of information that defames the reputations of parents who just lost their children in a massacre, and not journalists and citizens trying to find truth in good faith. So I don't want to take away anything from that victory because it's well-deserved. What I do want to understand, though, is whether or not we should extend this protection against other types of fake news. Now, there are obvious First Amendment free speech rights, and the chilling effect is a valid consideration if you're to expand it to the other area. But I can't help to think that people shouldn't profit off of lies that cost lives. So I do want to have a fair debate, and I definitely want your thoughts on this. But let's say that sometimes it can cost lives, and sometimes there's misperception that it costs lives, or it doesn't cost lives at all. And I guess this is hard for me to contextualize in a modern sense, so forgive the archaic example, but what if you could be held accountable for blasphemy if you challenge God? Or saying that you sail to the edge of uncharted territory, you won't fall off the edge and die. But authority said, you will die. Therefore, your misinformation about a spherical planet could cost lives. Clearly it's wrong, but you would never be able to challenge. So what if you couldn't challenge conventional wisdom? So I kind of see like how, I mean, coronavirus, masks, you know, all that stuff, like vaccines, that cost lives.
Yes, it did.
But
yeah.
So should those protections be extended to that, even though it's not defamatory as defined today, or is it just collateral damage to protect the greater concept of free speech?
I mean, I feel like you've answered the question in one way, and I will give some exposition to that. You know, it is not what most people want to hear, and I know that we've had some sort of, you know, we've had disagreements with this in the past, because you've been very much, you know, you're very much on the side that, you know, if you're costing and you're endangering the lives of thousands of millions of people with your misinformation, something, you know, there should be some sort of accountability for that.
Should be I don't know, yeah, like a threshold. Like, I get the concept and I get the purism, but at the end of the day, like, there should be a threshold. There should be common sense where it's like, all right, clearly you're exploiting a loophole, and that's not going to fly.
Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, like, for instance, you cannot say bomb or fire in a closed, like a private space, like a movie theater, right? But that's because there's an immediacy to that action. You're yelling fire is cause, and then immediately after that, people are going to run for an exit, and if someone were to die in a stampede, that is your fault. And because
I get what you're saying, but I think it's a misperception, especially when you take into account a virus, of how a virus works. Virus doesn't work immediately. There's an incubation.
Yeah, it doesn't.
So in that moment, the stampede moment is the exposure moment. And then it takes 2 weeks or 10 days, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Then you will get sick. But
there is room for the people in a me yelling fire in a theater, that immediacy. And I think this is something that probably should be talked about with more, you know, this is just something that should be flushed out. It is the fact that the people in that theater do not have the time to investigate whether my claim of fire is right or wrong. They have to act instinctually because of the clear and present danger. And I think that's the difference. Me simply going out in the public and saying COVID is not real, there is
visit my CDC website to read through my 20-page FAQ.
Yourself. And again, there's an issue there. That's the thing. It's like, how do you legislate for ignorance? And I think that's really the crux of our problem.
You know me, I'd love to educate everything out. I'd love to spend $700 billion on education and fix the whole thing. I'd love that.
Yeah, but the issue is, you know, when you're trying to legislate free speech in terms of ignorance, it's sort of like you're literally trying to create laws to
meantime,
punish
1.5 million people die.
Yeah, to punish ignorance. But at the end of the day, the true answer to that is not.
But
to
it's
build
not.
in
But
laws.
see, that's so.
Educate.
I want to. Yeah, but I want to be
and
clear.
invest
I
in
don't want to.
education.
I don't want to and this is. I don't want. Not that I reject your premise, but I want to correct at least maybe a perception of what I'm thinking.
Mhm.
Do not want to punish the ignorant. I'm not looking to punish Facebook mom groups. Okay. I'm looking to punish the more organized institutions that are spreading these things knowingly and exploiting them for profit.
Well, do you have
I think there's
example?
a difference. Alex Jones.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay.
Right. So he's being
sued. You're talking about someone on that level. So basically you're talking about
if I would say that if you are spending money, if you are spending money or if you are profiting, if you are actively advertising or profiting in some way to exploit ignorance, not to punish ignorance, but you are exploiting it, I think those people should be held to a different standard.
Okay. I mean, I think that that's what happened in this case. I mean,
no, but only because it was defaming an individual. Alex Jones could have easily went on his show and said, you know, masks don't work or whatever falsehoods that he wanted to spread.
Right.
Even though let's see him go for surgery and say, doctor, don't wear that mask.
But he couldn't attack an individual doctor, right? Like he couldn't attack Fauci. Yes.
But he could say whatever he wants, knowingly that it's incorrect, knowing that. And I guess that's a burden of proof that the prosecution would have to prove. And maybe the defense's attorney would mistakenly forward his entire email.
Maybe that
text message over to prove that.
It's a hard. I think it's how do you even do the correlation? That's the other thing. It's sort of how do you say that these number of people who died of COVID were Alex Jones listeners? That's what you would need to prove.
No, I don't think you need to. All you need to do is to say you were pushing a message that was knowingly false.
No, because that's not. But that you could do that in this country. That's freedom of speech. I can completely push something that I think is not that I think.
No, you can't do it if you can't do it. But you can't do it only if it's about an individual. If it's about something that's not
it's not a person.
Yeah, but don't you see?
I mean, like, where does it stop at that point? Because I mean, at the end of the day,
it stops that you cannot.
Because you could make the problem is, and the reason you'll never get there is because to start to legislate on people's opinions on whether something is scientific fact or not.
No, all right. So
you're gonna fall into.
But I think we're losing some of the original premise of this argument, and that is people are dying.
Yes, I know, but like I said, you
so
need to prove
it's not
that those
you're
people
arguing.
Died
it's not. Yeah, but no,
because of what he said.
Not because of what he said around something that's happening. That's
you have to prove that he's culpable for those. You have to prove that he's responsible for those people dying.
If we were in a health emergency, a national emergency,
I get that,
and hundreds of thousands of people in the beginning were dying, and it is ramping up. Tens of thousands every day.
Yes.
And our only defense at this point is to just wear masks, wash your hands, whatever it may be, before we had vaccines. And he is out there actively going against government mandates in some sense, right? You had people who refused to close down or socially distance. You had the gym owners being fined, all that stuff. But you have people actively going against public health safety guidelines during a national emergency.
Right.
I think it's a different area that you're playing in.
Well, what's the crime at that point?
Well, that's the whole point, is that it isn't a crime today. And
but I'm saying my point is, how do you get to the crime? That's my issue with your sentiment is that I get that that's not the best.
Okay, you're defaming strategic interests. I don't know.
But what's the reason for that? But my point is, if you are defaming strategic interest, to what end? I guess that's the thing. It's sort of like I guess I'm trying to say that it would be impossible, even in your world. Like this, here's the thing: if I wanted to go with you, let's say I agree with you completely, and I say, all right, you're right. This guy is going against the government. He's going against what the government's mandating in a national emergency, and millions of people are dying. Even so, in a court, you still need to prove that because of what he's saying, more people are dying. And the thing is, I'm like, how do you get there? You have to make that connection. Otherwise, otherwise it's just censorship. That's what I'm saying. At the end of the day, if you cannot prove that his words are actively contributing to the disaster of the pandemic, then you're just censoring him because you don't like what he's saying.
No,
and that's a problem.
That you don't like. It's that it's contradictory to life-saving information.
Yeah, but it's I hear what you're saying.
And it's in our conversation. Yeah, but in our conversation today, I think that the urgency is definitely lost when we were in the moment.
I get that.
And everyone was locked down, and everyone was taking showers when they went after they came outside and washing off their groceries, and really in a panic. You had people like him profiting off of misinformation that arguably collectively made things worse because they
and that's what you need to prove. That's what you'd have to prove. That's my point. And it's like, how do you prove that? That's the problem.
I don't know. Bring in people
you'd have to bring
in people and say, you recently broke the law. Why'd you do that? I heard it on Alex Jones' show. Great.
That's exactly what you'd have to. That's what you'd have to do.
But today that isn't even an option. So fine, if you need to do that, like I said, burden on the prosecution. But that isn't illegal today. Like, even if you could bring in that witness to turn on him, a viewer to turn on him, it does. He did nothing wrong.
You'd have to.
You know what I mean, though. There is, like, I followed you down the rabbit hole. Fine.
Yeah.
All right.
I guess what I'm trying to say is the reason it is not a law is because that would be the requirement of that law. That's what I'm trying to get at. Is that
so they brought in January 6 people to turn on? Why'd you do this? Trump told us to. Right.
Yeah,
that's all part of the hearing.
Yeah, because it was very because he. Well, that has yet to be seen. That has yet to be seen.
But the gym owners in New Jersey who got arrested for opening up their gym despite the mandate to shut down.
Did they say that Alex Jones told them to do it?
But that's what I mean. They bring him in. I heard on Alex Jones, right?
It would have to be you'd have to bring in hundreds of thousands of people to say that he impacted the pandemic. It would have to be at that level, yes, because you'd have to say that it was significance.
Why
bringing in 5 or 10 people? That's not necessarily going to say.
But why? What if that one person could have infected 5?
Yeah, you'd have to make that case. My point is, you'd have to keep going. You'd have to.
So then, fine. You have to find one person who knew someone that died that they could potentially have been the spreader.
Yeah, but you'd have.
And then you said, okay, you're responsible for one death.
Yeah, you'd have to keep going. No, it'd have to. You'd have.
Why is one death not worth it?
Why? Because you could never. It's not. No, one is not. You cannot, from your words, to make the case that your words were powerful enough. You have to have significance, which means you have to have.
You yell bomb and there's a stampede and one person dies.
We've already argued that out. We've already litigated that one. We've already said that there's a difference in the immediacy because you do not have the time to investigate whether my claim of bomb is correct or wrong. You have time when listening to a podcast from Alex Jones to then do your research and say, is he saying the right thing or the wrong thing? It's not an immediate action. That's the difference. And you can make that case, and that's a problem. That's my point is you're going to have a problem getting to the law that you would seek because you have to demonstrate significance. And that means that you have to have you'd have to have enough of a population to say that his words were actively influencing and making the pandemic worse. And that's big ask. It's a big ask. That's what I'm saying.
He has an audience he's pushing this stuff out.
Right. Yeah. I get it.
To say that he doesn't have influence. I mean, that's to reject what media is. The essence of media. You're rejecting its essence.
I get that. Yes, I get that too. I just think that, the issue is that, again, I think it goes back to the legislating of ignorance. And that's the problem because
you're not, though. You're legislating the opportunists, the exploiters, not the exploited. The exploited are the ignorant. Most of these people, Alex Jones may be an exception because I don't know much about him, but you have plenty of people who are super educated, who know damn well what they're doing.
Well, but here's another issue with this problem. It opens you up to then doing a case where, let's say, someone bombs an abortion clinic, and you have how many religions are anti-abortion? How many pastors speak to?
Trying to get me to defend religion right now?
That's my point. Is that I know, but I'm just saying you start to enter in those territories.
I think they should be entered. I just think they should be entered.
And that's not a place that anybody in a free society
Really?
truly wants to get involved with. Yes.
I think there's plenty of stuff in some of those books that are probably illegal.
Well, I mean, you have to. Yeah, I mean, you would start. My point is that you can then
So you're allowed to
start
preach those
legislating.
things?
Yeah, you'd have to start going after religion as well for a lot of different things.
Yeah,
and
that would
could
make
be
sense.
problematic.
That
well,
is,
it could be problematic.
yeah. Those old conflicts of interest.
I'm having trouble right now drumming up a situation where it would be something you would want to be spread, and yet someone is able to silence it because.
Well, that's what I was kind of getting at, right?
Problem.
Is that I understand you should be able to challenge conventional wisdom. I get that. Mm-hmm. I get that back in the day, people thought, I'm making this up because I think this is all like lore, but like the earth was flat. And if you sailed too far, you'd fall off the edge. And someone was like, yeah, I don't buy that. And then they sailed around and they never fell off the edge. Now, if they would have, stayed with conventional wisdom, we wouldn't have any understanding today. So I get it. Like, I get it. I think I don't know exactly how to handle it. I'm going to be honest. I think it needs a lot of debate. But this idea that you can only hold people accountable if the lies they spread are about an individual and not anything else. Under special circumstances, which maybe need to be really defined and not open to interpretation, there needs to be some common sense injected in because
we do have those special circumstances. It's called martial law, and if it were enacted during COVID, people like Alex Jones would have been labeled
not martial law. Why does it have to go to martial law?
Because that's why martial law is so. Yeah, I know.
Putting fining Alex Jones $50,000, $1 million an episode is not martial law.
Well, that is but that is what you're asking for. If you're
I'm not asking for martial law. I'm not asking for. We just went over martial law 2 episodes ago. Martial law is horrific. Yeah. I'm not asking for the military to boot out local municipality, state, and local township workers and replace them.
Well, that's what happened.
Because Alex Jones is saying that masks don't work. I'm not asking for some lieutenant in the army to be collecting your garbage. I know. I'm not saying that is the solution.
Okay. But I'm just saying that is a very easy that would have been an easy solution if you wanted.
Yeah, sure. If this was a Hollywood movie starring The Rock and maybe Ryan Reynolds for comic relief, yes, maybe that's what would happen.
Fair enough. It's a really good debate, though. I mean, it's something that
I know I'm on the losing side of this debate. I'll put that out there.
Here's the thing. I don't like that it's a losing side because the thing is there is some, there's validity to your concern, and that's what's important. I think that's the thing. It's like, yes, academically, if you want to talk about the stringentness of freedom of speech, you lose. But the truth is that we don't live in an academic society. We live in the real world. In the real world, there needs to be nuance, especially for things that are something that is like clear and present danger, such as the plague, like a worldwide pandemic, going out there telling people to cough on each other and like get it as quickly as possible because that's the way we're going to get through it, when that's clearly not right. In terms
you had people literally coughing on other people who were pissed.
Yeah.
So it's a problem. They don't think it's real because it's not pox, because they didn't see any visual signs. They think it's a hoax. And then you have the people saying it's a hoax and they're vaccinated. You had people on Fox News calling it a hoax when their network mandated them as employees to get vaccinated. Like, that's what I mean. Like, it's ridiculous.
Well, maybe the hypocrisy is something that you could litigate. I mean, that might be something you could actually do. If you're out there spreading a message that you could be found to not be adhering to yourself, that might actually be something that you might be able to legislate. And the thing is, we're unique in this because I don't want to go out on a limb, but I used to know this. The UK's laws on free speech are far more refined than ours are. Like, we have free speech. They necessarily, I don't believe you could have gone out in the UK on television and said COVID isn't real and not had some sort of consequences. I actually do think they have laws where you could be brought up on some sort of charges for doing something like that. It's a uniquely American thing. Other countries do have similar laws. Like for instance, Holocaust denying in Germany, for instance, that's illegal. Yeah. You can't just go and do that. You could do that in America. You cannot do that in Germany. So, this is a unique proposition to our country in terms of what you're allowed to say and get away with. Whether that needs to change, that's the debate. And I'm not so sure.
I can even
to
see
me, I
that
just wish that we were a little bit more educated.
What if history? Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like, because what if history was governed in that way, right? But instead of the Holocaust, it was something that happened here. And let's just say, well, the Holocaust, they're acknowledging it happened, right? And they're saying you can't say it didn't happen. What if it was kind of a little different here, where this is the history on slavery, or this is the history on the treatment of Native Americans, and if you go against it, that's like denying the Holocaust in a sense. But then we wouldn't be able to dig deeper and to learn about the true stories of individuals and tribes and plantations and things like that, especially in light of a lot of the stuff that's come out in the past 5 or so years. So almost like this like real history that you were never taught, that you have to read in books. So I could see the other side of saying you can't punish people for challenging history in a sense. For as wrong as it obviously might be in some cases, there is another side to it that, to your point about what I'm saying, it's hard to legislate. Yeah. So I get it. Like, I understand. Now, while denying history, and again, as horrific as some of those denials are, you are at risk for history repeating itself and for obviously disrespecting the memories of those that have fallen, suffered. But to your immediate, clear and present danger type argument, no, it isn't that. It's history. So I get that part. It's a little different than yelling fire or a pandemic, even though you might not equate a pandemic to the fire example.
I mean, is it fun to visit a plantation in the South that claims slavery was better for the people that were enslaved? Is that fun to hear? No. Do I want them arrested and trumped up on charges for misinformation? Not really, because at the end of the day, there are other ways to stamp out ignorance. Hauling them off with some military police, I don't think is going to, necessarily get us the results that we're looking for in terms of education. It's just, you have a Gestapo, you have a fascist state basically that just makes people disappear.
And I want to be clear,
you don't agree with the narrative
that's not what I'm saying.
That's not what we should be striving for.
If the misinformation was, I've only ever thought about it this way at the peak of the pandemic, when we were crippled and there were people out there raking in dough on the lies that were ultimately causing more death.
Yeah.
And I just think there needs to be exceptions. There are exceptions for so many other things. It's just only to protect humans directly, and not, it's like we're playing checkers instead of chess. And the people that are playing chess are gaming the system.
Yeah.
The laws are playing checkers and the opportunists are playing chess.
I agree with you. I mean, I sympathize with your position. There's no...
That's Antoine's polite way of saying he disagrees. I get it.
But I sympathize.
It's very emotional. It's an emotional thing.
It's an emotional
thing.
A
lot of people died. And you have to wonder how many less would have died if collectively misinformation was better managed around this particular issue.
Yeah. And then
it brought us to our knees.
Yeah. But I mean, not to poke holes in your, in that narrative, but I mean, as demonstrative as the people, the snake oil salesmen were in that pandemic, the government does share a sense of like a portion of not communicating effectively and not
whataboutism now. Now you're doing whataboutism?
No, I think this is in tandem. My point is, I think that this goes hand in hand. So that this would be part of the problem with. Yeah,
they should have maintained the supply of ventilators.
Well, there's a lot of different things.
They should have been preparing for that.
Mask, or were they the what is it, the N95s, like the shipments of. Not only that, but I mean, I'm talking about messaging, like just clear and present messaging, allowing each state to do what it wants to do, was, that was a government thing. The government did not federalize the response. They were saying, hey,
didn't want to
do what you guys.
They didn't want to.
Yeah, but that's my point. So it's like, if the government isn't going to come out and
but the government,
the
government was part of the problem at that time. You had the CDC being led by people who were trying to do the right thing.
Right.
But they were being.
Yeah. They were being.
I don't know. How do you say it? They
sidelined. I mean, there was. I have worse words for it, but yeah, they were. Yeah, it was not.
So it's not like
they weren't able
to
share
you, but that's kind of what I'm talking about too. Is that the DOJ should be able to say, dude, like you're part of the problem.
You're getting impeached. I mean, yeah. What do you? I don't know. Where do you go from? Yeah, exactly. Like what? How do you remedy that? Exactly. So
I mean, this is where I do envy a country like the UK, where apparently when citizens have enough, politicians actually leave.
Let's not. Yeah. Well, that might be that's a little over. I think you're.
I mean, it happens.
It
hasn't happened here for a very long time.
Yeah, but it's still the same party is in power. So it's not like there's the massive shift in sand. But yeah, you get rid of one person. But
listen, I didn't say it was perfect. It's definitely
it's better, but it's better.
It's better.
It's the difference between having a prime minister versus a president. A president is essentially a king, and that's the one thing the mythos of America is that we fought long and hard not to have an absolute monarch, and the president in his time, the limited time that he is allowed to be president, essentially gets to act as an absolute leader in many respects, and that's something that should be revisited. So
we covered it, folks. Previous pod, go check it out.
We did actually a long time ago. That's a very old pod. Very old pod. But something worth bringing up every now and then.
So, all right. Well,
that's it.
That's for that topic. I had another topic, but
yeah,
it's long, right?
It's long. Yeah, we're getting the weeds. So just let them know. Everyone, 2-topic episode, folks.
2-topic episode. But let us know if you liked it. It's been a while since Antoine and I had a little bit of a debate, so that was fun.
Yeah.
Hit us up on Twitter. Let us know your thoughts at Retraction Media. Keep sending us your ideas for what we should cover. We've had a few come in through DM, so thank you very much. And share your favorite episode with a friend or family member.
And with that, Retraction out.